I know Malcolm's going to be joining us, so I talked to him earlier.
Melissa's not going to be with us today. She had a family emergency she needed to handle. So, but Sarah Lynn will be.
Is Melissa doing okay?
Oh, yeah, she's okay. Yeah. Melissa's not. We are recording now, so.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Hey, Malcolm.
Hey, good evening, Ed. Hello, Erica.
Hey, Mr. Malcolm.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, sir.
Nice to see you, Derek.
Good to see you too, sir.
You got that nice backdrop again. You got to tell us how you do that.
I'll definitely hook it up, man. I'll send it to you guys in the email so we can all be uniform.
Yeah, I love it.
He'll send it to us before we meet live again, so none of us have a chance to use it on Zoom.
You mean that's not really in your living room?
No. I wish I had a beautiful backdrop like that in my living room.
Great.
Hmm?
Good evening, Devin.
Hmm. Good night. Have a good time, honey. At work. I mean, you got to work.
I can hear Ernestine. How you doing, Brian?
Hello, Sarah. Doing well. Thank you.
Good, good.
Hope you are. So Sarah Lynn, Melissa's not going to be joining this meeting, so if you wouldn't mind helping out there, it'd be appreciated.
Okay.
I'm on here, boss, but my video is not working.
You're good. Hey, Kirk.
Hi, Kirk.
How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
How you doing, Kirk?
I'm sorry you can't see this handsome, but maybe next time.
Yeah.
Miss Sarah Lynn, what time do you have?
All good fun.
6:02.
Brian, you ready?
Yes, sir. We're recording on YouTube and I think we're ready to go.
Okay, let's call to order the Planning Commission meeting for June 1st, 2020, just after 6 o'clock. And Mr. Cook with the town of Blythewood is recording the meeting. Sarah Lynn, will you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Rich McHenry,
Present.
Malcolm Gorge,
Here.
Marcus Taylor, Derek Pugh,
Here.
Erica Page,
Here.
Ed Kesser,
Here.
Ernest Middleton.
Hey, Ernestine, we see you. We didn't hear that, but we see you and you are present and accounted for. So we have a quorum. And we did have notification and posting of the agenda, correct, Sarah Lynn?
That's correct.
Okay, and I'm sure everybody got the email with the agenda in the packet, as I did. And with that, if there are any changes to the agenda, can we talk about it now? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adopt it as presented.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, just give a thumbs up on your screen. All righty. Agenda is adopted. And Brian, can you pull up the American flag so we can do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sir. There you go.
And if we can all stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and justice
and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on to item D, which would be approval of the minutes from May 4th, 2020. And again, those were sent out via email. Take any comments or corrections anybody sees from the minute.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as they are, sir.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the motion to approve the minutes as presented, say aye.
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 Any nays? Okay, motion carries. And we're going to get into Sarah Lynn or Brian, either one. Are you aware of anybody that signed up to speak under citizens' testimony?
I believe that there are the applicant, of course, and they have several folks with them. Potentially some property owners, the Creech Road area, or online. It's hard to tell sometimes with just the phone number showing up, but there are some citizens that may want to talk, but I would think that they'd want to talk at open citizens comment, or perhaps after I give the presentation, if there's anything they'd like to add at your discretion.
Okay, just for housekeeping matters, let's go ahead and move to action item A, the park at Blythewood, and we will deal with, certainly I see the developer on the line, maybe the current property owner and others as we wish to speak, but let's go ahead and dive into A. So Brian, with that, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thanks, sir. So the property we're looking at today is Creech Road, tax map 151000506. It's the park at Blythewood. It's a site plan review for a multi-family senior living complex. It's zoned town center and is within the architectural overlay district. The subject parcel, again, it's on Creech Road. It's approximately 2.86 acres in area. They propose a senior living facility with 48 housing units, 24 one-bedroom and 24 two-bedroom in a 3-story structure. The development will have a single access point and be accessed exclusively from Creech Road. Multifamily is a permitted use in the town center district. Because of the type of development, being a group development, the Planning Commission is tasked with reviewing the site plan, paying attention to internal vehicular pedestrian circulation and the impact on existing streets serving the development. Traffic impact study was requested from the Planning Commission at last month's meeting. You may recall this was before you, and it was deferred until this month. The applicant has provided that traffic study for your review, and I believe that they have some folks that can comment on that when they have their opportunity. Again, Creech Road, as you know, is a dead-end road that the future of Creech Road is proposed to be extended down paralleling the interstate and potentially coming out somewhere around Blythewood High School, or potentially more than one area that would come back out on Main Street. So that is in the works, part of the Penny project that is pending. Just a little bit of the history on Creech Road that may help. One of the things that the property owners in that area kind of goes back to is the land being Creech Road was basically donated to the town, my understanding, by the Creech DuBard family. And within that, they reserve certain rights to curb cuts, access driveways, and et cetera, which obviously, as we go down and they donated that land, the intent is for it to be a commercial development mixed with a multifamily, in this case, being a mixed use development near the interstate. We're kind of in between the project on Creech Road right now. Again, as you may recall, that the Penny project, second in line, and Mr. Gorge may be able to comment a little bit more eloquently than I will, but the Creech Road potentially and ultimately will be extended to open up access. There is a pinch point, obviously, in Blythewood Road, but in the future, in the very near future, I hope, that Creech Road will be extended. It's a high priority for the town to get that extended for economic development and for traffic concerns to alleviate some of that. The idea, and I think they've been working on a senior village concept in that area for even back before I even was employed at the town. So it's been in the works, the senior village in that area, to serve the citizens of Blythewood for some time now. Again, it was a project from private property owners in that area, and the Creech Road extension will also be potentially a land donation that would be a benefit to the town. So I would say the major stakeholders in that area are, and they can speak for themselves, obviously, if they'd like, but they're for this project. Obviously, they have a vested interest. They've donated land to the town, and just wanted to kind of get that out. And again, they may have more information that they'd like to speak to you after that. But just in closing, again, this is a site plan review that's before you. The parking concerns or traffic concerns, I should say, can be addressed a little more by the applicant. There are some within criteria within your package, should you be inclined to approve this request, dealing with street cross sections and driveway design and et cetera, curb cuts, and of course, all your standard applicable federal, state, and other local requirements would come into play. Should you approve this, it would go to the Board of Architecture review for their site plan review, because it's in our town center architectural overlay district. So that would be the next step, and they meet in June 15th. Any construction would be submitted, should be in substantial compliance with what the Planning Commission approves today. So that was a long-winded introduction. I'm sure the applicant has a few more things to pass on, but certainly happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Brian before we bring on the applicant? Again, this is kind of a replay from last month. So we got a lot of information last month, and then we asked for the traffic study. That was the only thing withstanding that we were kind of waiting on. So we now have that. Devin, I see you there. Do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, not much to add. I believe that or hopefully everyone's gotten a copy of the traffic study. And Roger has been kind enough to join us tonight. And whenever you guys are ready, I'm happy to kind of turn it over to him, let him walk you through the traffic study. And should you have any questions, we can certainly answer them.
Thank you.
So you want Roger to go through it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Roger, if you don't mind.
Okay, I don't have camera hooked up here, but I hope everybody can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, I did the traffic study for the motel lodging site just across the way. I guess that must have been, what, 18 months ago or something like that. And y'all were gracious enough to let us use the traffic count data from that study. And we updated it based on a little bit of growth between the time that those counts were done, which I think was maybe early summer of 18 up to now. So we really appreciate you letting us do that. With the lockdown going on, I've actually had a couple projects that have just gotten totally delayed because we just can't go collect any meaningful traffic data. We've had a couple where the DOT or the city or county has agreed to do the same thing that you folks did. I know we really appreciate that. It enables us to go forward. So we used that base traffic data that we had collected back in 2018. Portions of that study are in the appendices to this report. So we use that as our basis for existing traffic counts updated to allow for a little bit of growth since 2018. Now, page number 4 of the study is where we start talking about the trip generation and trying to predict what future traffic volumes are going to be. And we presume that we get this thing done relatively quickly and have it done sometime by probably in late 2021. And so on page 4, there's a chart that shows the trip generation. I know there was some discussion about that, and I just want to reiterate that the trip generation rates that we use are the ones that come out of the ITE manuals and tables. Now, the ITE is the Institute of Transportation Engineers, a national organization. They've been around about, I think this coming year is our 90th anniversary. And it's engineers and traffic planners from cities and counties and consultants and state DOTs all across the country. And there's a group within that organization that specializes in trip generation. And about every 5 years, they do a major update of the trip generation manual. The DOT and virtually all the cities and counties that we deal with require that we use the numbers that come from that national manual. Now, sometimes those numbers might be higher than we might get locally if we did a study. Sometimes it might be lower, but we pretty much have to use that manual. Now, once in a while, we have to do something extra. I've got a project up in Greenville. It's a retail use that's different from others listed in the manual. There's not one exactly like it. We're having to do something a little bit different on that one. But on this one, we use the land use code, as they call it in the manual, for the senior living facility. And the trip generation for that type of facility is quite a bit lower than single family. It's quite a bit lower than apartments. I know there's been some discussion about that, well, it's maybe more than that. But again, we're kind of pinned in a little bit that we sort of have to use that as a requirement of the DOT and others. Now, I suppose if we wanted to find 10 or 15, some number of similar developments around the state, we could do that and do some studies. That's pretty time consuming and expensive to pull that together. But again, we use the numbers straight out of the manual. That's what we would have had to do trying to get a DOT approval. So with that, the trip generation predicted for the site is 178 trips per day, 89 in, 89 out. In the morning peak hour, the prediction is only 10 trips, 3 in and 7 out. And in the afternoon peak hour, the prediction is 12 trips, 7 in and 5 out. Now, you might find, or you might have some hours during the middle of the day where the numbers might be even a little higher. But those are the two critical hours out on the main roadways that the Blythewood and other main roadways that we have to study. So that's typically the hours that we look at. Once in a great while, DOT or city or county will say, well, we want you to look at every hour of the day because we're concerned with what's happening today, or we've even had some once in a while you had to look at a Saturday and a Sunday. But for the most part, we look at the AM and the PM peak hour because that's generally when conditions are the most critical. People in a hurry to get to work, people in a hurry to get home tonight. So the trip generation information is on page 4 of the report. And when you do the gyration with the traffic, where does it come from? Where does it go to? Well, without a detailed market survey, you really just have to estimate. That's what we do on basically every one of these studies. We try to estimate. But what we did here is the same thing we did with the hotel. We took a look at traffic volumes in the area, and of course looked at volume on I-77 and volume on Blythewood, and just kind of looked at it from the standpoint of where the heavier volumes are, where do we think traffic is coming and going. And so about 90% of the traffic, I think the number is actually 87% or something like that, is kind of oriented to I-77. So we made the estimate here that about 90% of our traffic would go towards I-77, the remaining 10% would go to Blythewood Road. Now, in practice, at different times of day, those numbers may be different. This is kind of a worst case scenario. This is saying if traffic does what the current traffic in the area is doing, this is the way it would be distributed. Of course, that puts most of our traffic making a left turn at Creek at Blythewood Road. In practice, if that becomes difficult to do, you'll have some folks that'll make a right turn. They'll go and probably make a U-turn somewhere if they're going towards the interstate, or they may decide to go shop at one of the grocery stores or go to a restaurant or something else on Blythewood Road. So we've really looked at kind of a, I guess, quote unquote, a worst case scenario in the report by showing about 90% of the trips going towards to and from actually I-77. So we move on to page 6, and that's where we predict what the future traffic volumes are going to be in late 2021 when the development is built out and fully occupied. So we're taking the background traffic and just simply adding on to it the trips that we think are going to be generated here. And I will say that I did include in there the trips from the hotel. I don't know exactly how the numbers fall in there, but certainly they'd be in full operation, full occupancy at the same time this one would be. So this study does include the hotel. Doesn't include anything else down to the south, and other things happening down the way with further development down the south. That's not taken into account here. I wasn't aware of that road being extended down there. Then we move on. Page 7 is a chart that, again, we are required to use by the DOT and virtually every agency. How we determine the quality of the traffic flow, what we call the level of service at the intersections. And it's a little bit different for a signal or a non-signal intersection or even a roundabout. And this chart shows you the designations go from A to F, kind of like grades in school, where A is excellent, really good, and F is failing. And it's related really to the amount of time that the average car has to sit in traffic. Now, average is what it is, just what it says. That means that about half the traffic would have that delay or less. You'd have some people that have more, and you'd have some that would have less. The urban kind of setting, you'd like to have D or better at every intersection. Of course, you can't get that. You'd like to have that for every movement, but you can't get that. Side street approaches and left turns on the main line, usually you're just not going to get that at peak hours. But the chart on page 7 is the level of service criteria that we have to use. And so then we use something called the Highway Capacity Manual and a piece of software, which again, DOT says we have to use, called Synchro. And it goes in and does all the calculations and predictions of what the level of service either is, or in this case, both is and will be in the future with the project in place. And there's a module of that software called Sim Traffic. And if I were presenting this in person, I'd probably show you the Sim Traffic. The Sim Traffic gives you an animated view of what the traffic flow would look like. You may have seen this if you've been to some DOT public hearing type meetings. They normally show the Sim Traffic to show you how the traffic will flow through the project. So we did that. We followed the DOT guidelines on how many times you have to run it, take the averages, that sort of thing. Those results are in the table on page 8, that's table 3. And what we see there is that most everything is at an A or a B. We've got a couple of C's in there. And so that's out on the stop sign approach. And what we're seeing is in both the morning and the afternoon peak hours, we're seeing the queue or the line of traffic. And that last, under the AM peak hour and the PM peak hour, the third column over, that's the feet that 95% of the time, the traffic queue would be that number or less. So when we see 101 there, normally we assume about 25 feet for the length of a car in traffic stacked up, and that allows for a foot or two in front, a foot or two behind the average vehicle. So basically 4 cars. So the Sim Traffic analysis here is saying we would have a level service for the left turns, and that the queue there at the stop sign would be about 4 cars. And we're basically getting the same thing for both the morning and the afternoon peak hours. The right turn isn't quite as bad, but the queue is still as long because you've got one lane that everyone has to share. So that's kind of what we got from the running of the model. Of course, down at the access road on Creech itself, no issues down there at all. Everything's A because the volumes are so low. You know, no question that adding this additional traffic obviously doesn't make things any better. The amount of deterioration is really not that much, you know, compared to what's out there today, or to what occurs in the future with the hotel in place, but this development not in place. 4 cars backed up at a stop sign is not unexpected in an urban kind of setting. And so generally speaking, what we're seeing here is that the impacts are just not really significant. I think down the road, maybe one thing that will have to be looked at is something for that access management plan on Blythewood. I know it's in your long range plan, maybe in your county secondary road or county road program. I think I've seen it in there as an upcoming project somewhere down the way. I don't think it's maybe imminent, but that may be some things that they'll be looking at when they look at the design out there. This particular intersection is starting to get kind of busy. It's really too close to the signal at the ramp system there to put another signal in. But I think, you know, down the road, perhaps maybe there needs to be a look at possibly another signal between there and the next one down to the east. And I apologize, I've forgotten the name of that connection down there where there's a grocery store down there. So I think there's some long-term things maybe with access control, access management that may need to be looked at down the way on Blythewood Road. But the impacts we're seeing from this project are very minimal, and you just, with those 10 cars in the morning and 12 in the afternoon, you're just not going to see a whole lot of big difference compared to what it is out there today. So I kind of hit the high spots there. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Roger. We have any questions for Roger? Somebody want to kick it off? Let me add before we start into questions. Roger, correct me if I'm wrong. And for the planning commissioners that were not on the commission 18 months ago, Malcolm, I think that would include you, but and Derek as well, and Ernestine, I think you missed this first go round. So When the hotel went in, we asked the hotel, the Rogers Group did it for the traffic study, and it was pretty important to us. Ed, I think you were part of that discussion, you and Erica both, that we do this during school hours. The first recap we had of a traffic study did not include school hours. And we asked Rogers Group to go back and bring us those same traffic tallies and including the peak school hours for the hotel's sake, which Roger said he has added to the apartment complex. Roger, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Indeed, you did use school hours for the hotel traffic study, correct?
I'd have to go back and look and see, but I know the school traffic is kind of important out there. And of course, the afternoon when the school lets out, we don't have a whole lot of trip generation data for hotels and stuff that kind of mesh with the school dismissal. And of course, in the morning, traffic is not very extensive. You know, usually at different times of day when it's a little bit busier. I do recall I know the town, but also the DOT was involved with the access control there at the access to the hotel, and the island, and forcing the right in, right out, and all that. I do recall that was something that was an absolute necessity, and I did presume that was happening in the analysis that we did here.
Thank you. Any questions on the traffic study?
I do. Well, I have more questions about the development, perhaps. I'm probably not going to phrase this correctly, but so this project's going to be built for senior living, and let's say when it's developed, is there a possibility that this will convert to just standard apartments, let's say? So then, and because my thought process of senior living, my thought process is those folks are more likely not to be traveling during peak times. However, if this project converts to a standard apartment complex, then you are going to have that type of high volume traffic, be it left turn, right turn, whatnot. So I'm just trying to understand, is the development going to be recorded such that that would have, do you see where I'm going with it, so to speak?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. Just a quick download of how this project is financed. We are actually financing this through the state with the tax credit. And as part of that system, we signed an agreement with the state mandating that we will keep this project operating in its current capacity for a minimum of 20 years. So we will be the owners, and it will perform as a senior living project for the entire duration of that time. And when it comes towards the end of that time, the typical process for these projects is it gets put back through that program so that we can basically do a rehab, update the project, and keep it going under that same thing.
But can't that be modified if you don't reach the occupancy levels that you anticipate within a certain period of time?
No, we cannot pull it out and make it a regular multifamily project. It's going to be in the program.
But it doesn't, I guess maybe a better way to say it is if you don't reach the occupancy levels, if you go, at 20, 25, 30%, you can go back and ask for that to be modified and it become an open project.
You mean converting from a senior to a family deal?
Yeah, just to a family deal. Yeah, I've seen that done.
Yeah, I would have to go back and double check our program requirements. We've never run into that scenario. Again, all these projects are based off market demand. So if a senior project if we're targeting a senior project here, it's because the market warrants that, and there's a small capture rate that we would need. So I don't anticipate any lease up issues, but to address that question specifically, I would need to go back and double check. We've never run into a scenario where we've had to convert a senior property to a multifamily property.
My point was just that it can be done. It has been done.
Yeah,
I still have a concern, as I expressed last time. I've talked to other people on both sides of the interstate, and there is a general feeling that there's enough traffic right now on the Blythewood Road, regardless of which side of the interstate you're on. And I was surprised that a lot of people that I talked to were not even aware of the 88-room motel going up. And after bringing that up and then talking about the apartment complex under consideration, I mean, I found the basic consensus wasn't, unless there is an extension to Creech Road off, to Main Street, or a light or something, that we are looking at a nightmare being created.
Yeah, clearly, as the traffic study showed, we're adding cars to that intersection.
We're adding cars to a very busy intersection already.
Correct, with most of them attempting to make a left-hand turn unless we do something to mitigate. And say you're going to turn right out onto Blythewood Road from Creech.
Well, then where are you going to go from there, Rich? If you have to make a right, because I even had some people, when I was talking to people, said that they don't even go to Hardee's because they don't want to be faced with having to make the left-hand turn because they can't get out. So
yeah,
where are you going to make a right? What are you going to do? Make a big U-ey? I mean, you can't make a U-ey. I guess you got to go down to the stop, go down to Wendy's, take a left, and come around and make a circle.
Yeah. You could go clear down to Wendy's, make a left at the post office, and come on back out. But again, if you're a traveler staying in the hotel, you don't know that because you're not familiar with Blythewood of how to get redirected to the interstate, although the apartment complex would.
Yeah.
Brian, just for a point of clarification, either by you or Mr. Wilson, and Ed, I don't disagree with your comments at all. I agree with you last month as well. Erica, same for you. We posed some of these same questions to Devin last month, but Brian, can you clarify? My first clarification would be this zoning would be conducive whether it was a senior living apartment complex or an apartment complex as the point is on Wilson Boulevard. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And my second question would be, this is Kurt for you as well as Brian. In the Creech Road study, if you look at the comprehensive plan or the master plan, which again is further down on our agenda, both extremely outdated, and I don't know that it's fair to even say, hey, in our comprehensive plan, this is what we say, because these documents are so outdated. But from what we can look at, this situation for this piece of property, in staff's opinion, would be the highest and best use for a piece of property on Creech Road in that location, correct?
It's a use that's permitted in the zoning district in proximity to the interstate. So it would be a use consistent with the zoning and the proximity to an interstate. And if I could continue just for 1 second, Mr. Chairman, share my screen with you. Again, just to reiterate, you can see the map, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously right here is where we're talking about for the proposed apartment complex. Ultimately, potentially, we all know Creech and Blythewood, there may be a roundabout here that would alleviate that. The plan for Creech Road is to extend it down. Not sure if it's going to go on either side of this wetland area here, but it will eventually be extended down and perhaps come out between the church and the high school, and or perhaps go further down and come out on I guess that's North Fire Tower down here somewhere. Some of the land here is owned by the school, some is owned privately. Again, we do have the landowners willing to work to open that up down there with a potentially a donation, and that doesn't happen very often. The second part of that, if you go again back up here to Creech Road and Blythewood Road, I understand that the pinch point here with the hotel and Blythewood Road and trying to take a left turn back onto Blythewood Road. Creech Road is a town road. It's a public town road. There may be potential to do a right turn only here. Folks would either have to come down right and go to Main Street or circle back around McNulty and come back out and go with the flow of traffic. So temporary options, but more permanent options are on the way. And I just wanted to point that out since we're talking about it.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I understand where we are when talking about making this right-hand turn, and then going down to Main Street and making the turn and making it temporarily an option. But the fact still remains that it's going to be congestion, period. Whether and putting it back over by McNulty's and bringing it back around, it's still going to cause congestion when it comes out to Blythewood Road. So I know we're saying it's temporarily, but do we have a guesstimation on the timeline for extending Creech Road back out around the backside? Because that's a more feasible option than coming back out to Blythewood Road and making either trying to make that left turn or making a right turn.
Mr. Gorge, I know it's kind of hard to predict, with McNulty and Creech. What's your gut on that, if I may, Mr. Chairman? So.
Well, the good news is that both McNulty and Creech Road projects have been included in the rescoping document approved by Richland County. So that means those two projects will now proceed as planned. They've been on hold for probably a year with all the issues about how the money for the Richland Penny project was going to run out and how they were going to manage that. Well, by rescoping and eliminating some projects, they've been able to get back to the original referendum amount, and council has Richland County Council has approved that revised program. So now things can start to move ahead. So from memory, I think we would be talking about a couple of years to go through completion of the design stage for Creech and McNulty, and making a start on construction, if not completing construction.
Malcolm, is that, the question, the follow-up question would be, with the deficit that's being projected by the DOT, my understanding is some projects have been put off substantially because they thought that with the revenues down because people aren't traveling, they aren't getting the revenue from the gas, and they're projected to run somewhere between a $350 million deficit over the next 2 years. So are we looking at something, maybe it's been approved in scope by Richland County, but realistically, we're looking at something maybe that's 4 or 5 years down the road?
I wouldn't be so pessimistic as that. Don't forget the funding for the penny is from just the global sales tax. It's not related to fuel tax. It's nothing to do with SCDOT funding per se.
Okay.
So Richland County believe that they can now bring in these projects on the rescoped list under budget, and that's what they're going with.
Even with the deficit they got with the penny.
There's a bit of leeway in the project costs to get all of those listed projects taken care of.
Mr. Chairman, I think what my concern is, I feel like we putting the cart before the horse. when it comes to this project, because we got mixed numbers of when we can expect that extension on the backside, and we know it's going to create traffic because we all live here in town and we've experienced trying to get out of Creech Road, trying to get back to the interstate. I don't feel comfortable without the support of the infrastructure in place, because it's no telling what the traffic is going to look like when it comes to people living in everyday life in the back in that particular area. So that's my position on that. I just wanted to make that clear.
If you don't mind, I would just like to add, obviously from our standpoint, certainly understand y'all's concerns with traffic. However, we do have the traffic study you guys requested, and we are a very minimum impact to that traffic. I think at max adding a 4-car backup. And these concerns, I'm sure, were there when you guys approved the hotel as well. So I just want to point out that senior housing is one of the lowest impacts to traffic you could have from a land use standpoint.
Yeah, Devin, thank you. I agree. And as I think has been shared, any traffic on certainly Blythewood Road is very much a concern to Planning Commission and Town Council, as well as other groups in and about Blythewood. Ed, you referenced talking to business owners and people on both sides of Blythewood Road. That's a concern. Congestion is a concern. I do want to caution us and let Mr. Cook weigh in if he deems it appropriate, but I want to caution us as a planning commission what our calls here have to be based upon. And not that we can't vote. If we think it's a detriment to Blythewood, certainly vote your conscience and what you're called to vote. But we do need to be careful in that it's laid out for us pretty clear. If zoning is conducive to what is being applied for, and then we request, which we did last month, additional information, which is provided in this case by the traffic, and the traffic study makes a recommendation. We need to be careful that we're not stacking a house of cards against ourselves. And again, I'm not trying to control a vote or tell someone how to vote, but I do want to avoid a challenge where the applicant has done what we've asked them to do. And Deb and I appreciate y'all getting that traffic study to us in a timely manner. And was I a little surprised at the traffic study? I was, because, Roger, I know you're still on the line, and I really expected to see some Ds and Fs once the senior living facility was added. I mean, I'm just going to be very candid. And we didn't. I didn't see that in the updated traffic study. I appreciate the percentage Roger's group even used in the, I don't know, 16, 18 months that has passed since the traffic study was done for the hotel. But we just need to make sure we have a leg to stand on to tell this developer no, because you meet the zoning. No, because you're not really impacting traffic per the traffic study that was done. And no, because of other businesses that we've already approved going on the same road. It really does boil down to what's first. Was it the chicken or the egg? And if you build it, they will come. Is that true? But here we clearly have a developer who wants to invest in Blythewood. And if we're going to create a horrible traffic situation, which on the front end, I believe we're going to make it worse. Those apartments aren't going to rent. So that's going to fall, Ed, more to what you said. Are they going to try to adjust the application? Erica, you made the same point. Are we going to see this turn into a residential apartment complex versus senior living? But that clearly falls on the developer for occupancy rates. But I want to be careful that we're staying within what the Planning Commission's called to, and that is making sure we're planning for the long-term Blythewood, which I think our comments are. I think all 100% of comments are for the betterment of Blythewood. I do think it boils down to what traffic we're dumping on Blythewood Road and the timing of that traffic.
I do not have a problem with the project at all. I like the project. I like the project. I go back to what Derek mentioned. I just think we're getting the cart before the horse. Having lived here and go up and down Blythewood Road 2 or 3 times a day and know what traffic we got right now. I even went in one thing I think in the traffic study that's not, I didn't see anything in it, was the impact of a Starbucks and a Zaxby's going to have on the traffic on Blythewood Road. Go down to Killian Road and try to get and go to Starbucks and see how long it takes you to get through Starbucks and see what the traffic's like. That's what we're looking at. You know, it's just not the 88-room motel. You got 2 good businesses that are going to open up that are going to be patronized, and it's going to add a traffic count to Blythewood Road that we all that live here know pretty well saturated right now with cars.
Yeah, and again,
I
just
like the
reiterate.
project. I have no problem with the project. I just wish we could get the roads in first.
Yeah.
The extension of Creech Road, whether go out to Main Street or go down the community road.
I understand what you're saying, Ed, and I certainly understand the comments that have been made this evening. But the way I look at it is I don't think this particular project should be penalized because we already have a bad traffic problem. If this housing project doesn't go ahead, we have still got a bad traffic problem at that intersection. And again, in my perspective as a planning commission, it's our responsibility to figure out ways and means of mitigating that. Now, we're not traffic engineers, and we're not going to have the absolute solution for that. But I think it's our responsibility to point out that need and to investigate that, the options, and to make recommendations for what the best solution is. So, you know, my feeling is, you know, the comments made are valid, but to some extent they're mutually exclusive, and I would support going ahead with the project as proposed.
Mr. Chairman?
Brian, do we have any, does a property owner wish to speak, or does any other, Devin, I don't know if you have anybody else, but I do thank you for bringing Roger on for the traffic study. Is there anybody else that wants to speak on this?
Before we do that, Mr. Chairman, may I add one more thing?
Yes, sir.
Piggyback off what you were talking about earlier, and just to put some, I guess, scale and scope to it. For our current ordinance, traffic impact study shall be prepared for review and approval by the Planning Commission as part of a site plan procedure for those group developments designed for 150 or more dwelling units. Again, just trying to put some context to it. We're talking about 48 units, whereas our Planning Commission and Council approving the code that we have deemed 150 more dwelling units to be kind of the litmus test or the threshold to require a traffic study. So I say that just to put some context to the number of units that we're talking about, potentially piggyback off what we talked about earlier with the improvements that I think are certain to happen. So that's all.
Yeah, Brian, Brian, you bring up an interesting point in that if we wouldn't have asked for it last month, we would be talking about a project almost 3 times this size before it would require a traffic study be completed. Now, clearly Devin's group did the due diligence and had Roger update something that was already on file, but again, our ordinance would not call for a traffic study to be required unless a project was almost 3 times this size.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was on the Planning Commission when we looked at, and I think Malcolm was on there also, when we looked at the apartment complex that is now on Main Street. And we faced some of the same issues. We had some of the very same arguments and concerns. We voted as a Planning Commission to go against it. It got overturned legally. So I just want to put that out there. I don't, you know, I agree with what everyone is saying, you know, about putting the horse before the cart. But in the end, you want to make sure that we do what we're supposed to do as a Planning Commission and not go outside of those boundaries, because that wasn't a pleasant experience. We had a lot more of the public, I won't say up in arms, but we had a lot more public participation. People did not want it. We voted accordingly, according to what we felt was best for the town of Blythewood. And in the end, you know, it went the other way.
And to your point, as I review the minutes from several years prior to coming on the planning commission, just to see how the commission operated, and planning commission of Blythewood has done a great job. You speak to my earlier point, which is we really need to be careful when a developer is trying to develop a piece of property and they haven't asked to rezone it. It's already zoned. It's appropriate zoning.
Yes.
We just need to be careful how we proceed. Not that somebody doesn't need to vote their conscience, but the last thing we want is litigation. And actually, Devin's group is the one that did the point. I don't know if we've mentioned that on this meeting call or not, but the point was developed by the same group. And so for all who are wondering, Devin is responsible for those 2 brick pillars that are just kind of sitting on the edge of Wilson Road.
That was a design requirement, not my idea.
I have one other question. The Roger, the group that did the traffic study, are they independent from the developers, or is that part of the developers?
Yeah, they're independent. We actually tracked them down because you guys had used their traffic study for the hotel. And so I
Okay.
wanted to be in the same format so that you didn't get conflicting information.
Okay, I thought I heard that at the beginning. I just wanted to be sure.
No, Mr. Chairman, one more thing, please.
Sure.
The property owners, they are here. One of the things that we talked about, again, not so germane to the conversation, but we're talking about senior housing. It was written into the contract for the sale of the property that it would remain senior housing. So again, not so germane to the planning concept, but just wanted to point that out on their behalf since they brought it up. But they're certainly here and can maybe shed some more light on what we've been talking about if you so desire for them to speak, Mr. Chairman.
I certainly don't have a problem with that. Do any commissioners have a problem hearing from the property owner?
Absolutely not. We'd welcome it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Bonnie Creech Martin. I am one of the donors of the current Creech Road and also one of the owners of the sellers. We're selling to this. We have a contract with the senior village. And I have a letter here that the whole family has approved, all the owners have approved, and I would like to share that with you.
Thank you.
And there are several points here, and I would reiterate some that Brian has said. Number one, we require that this be senior village in the contract. So to proceed with the letter. In fairness, the current senior village and the new hotel that's been approved came to the town at about the same time. It only seems fair not to favor the traffic of the new hotel over a senior village. One serves travelers, the other serves our citizens. Unlike other federal projects, this senior village requires citizens to have a certain level of income, and it serves such citizens as teachers, firemen, and other public servants. Prior to the current contract we've been working with the encouragement, excuse me. Prior to the current contract, we did work with some other contractors on the senior village. In fact, we've been working with the encouragement of the town to acquire a senior village all the way back from 2016. Before the current contract, the town actually signed a letter of intent for a senior village, and that was in 2017. That was quite a while before the current owners of the new hotel acquired the site in 2018. So in other words, we got there at about the same time. And, you know, based on the town's encouragement, you know, we've incurred legal expenses to review contracts and devoted considerable amount of effort acquiring a senior village. We traveled to inspect 2 senior villages in South Carolina before we signed any contract. One village was new, and one was 20 years old. We wanted to ensure buildings and grounds would withstand the test of time. That's why we went to a 20-year-old one. We were also assured by the buyer, who's here today, that their funding source requires regular inspections to ensure that the building and grounds are well maintained. In fact, when these current buyers, we actually had a contract with the current buyers for the point, but when they asked us to allow senior villages, we rejected that sale.
Non-senior.
When they, okay, sorry, my son's correcting me. When the buyers requested a change to their first contract to allow non-seniors, we rejected that contract, even though our site was the first choice of the people that are here today. We were further assured by the buyer that their funding source requires regular inspections to ensure that the building and grounds are well maintained. So, also going back to some other points that the family made. We not only donated the land for the for Creech Road. Got to find my place here. Excuse me for a minute. In addition to donating the land for Creech Road, we also paid for the construction of Creech Road, including engineering, grading, and pavement, as well as a stormwater system that runs alongside the road. So in return for all that expenditure, when we donated the Creech Road to the town, there was a clause included, which Brian alluded to, that that we would be allowed, and our heirs and assigns would be allowed for a curb cut and a driveway. So in effect, our family our legal advisors have advised us that we cannot be denied by accepting this contract. The town accepted this contract, that we can't be denied a curb cut and a driveway for the senior village or for other properties along Creech Road. And we're also planning to donate the land for the future Creech Road extension. So, we're trying to do our part to help the traffic. And the Holiday Inn wouldn't be there generating revenue right now if it weren't for Creech Road. We're very interested in Blythewood and the future of Blythewood.
And while we are very happy that the town has been able to earn revenue on the taxes from the commerce, from the Holiday Inn, as well as other businesses, we do think that we would like this one piece of Creech Road to go and do something good and right for the people of the town of Blythewood, because without these folks, we do not have the very important people that we need to make up this community, to enrich this community with their presence, and they will. And roads are to be shared, and they are for the people. And that's what this country is sprang from, this pluralism that we have. And we're so grateful to be a part of it. And we want what is best for the town of Blythewood, and we will continue to do so. So thank you for hearing us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for the current property owner? The only question I would have would be, are there any other plans, either in infancy stages or further, aside from the senior living facility that you're currently negotiating for on Creech Road, that the town may know about?
Actually not, but to address that, our contract with the town would not prohibit that because we have reserved a right for curb cuts and driveways per the contract when we donated the land to the town. So we are not currently, the answer to that is no, but if others were to come along, we have a legal right to access.
Yes, ma'am. I'm certainly not, I'm not in the position to argue for or against the contract you signed with the town. I'm just more or less asking for the commissioners' benefit for what we're doing on Creech Road currently.
Right, currently we do not. But
Okay, the other question I have, Devin, this is for you. You're very aware of the right in, right out of the new hotel that's being built. And I'm going to speak to the fact that the end of Creech Road is not a turnaround. It is, the road just ends. So the people coming out of the hotel looking to leave Blythewood, really your property, if approved, and or the Holiday Inn, those driveways are where people would most likely turn around because there is not a roundabout at the end of Creech Road. And I'm sure you've driven, I know you have, we spoke about it before, driven the site, but you're extremely aware of the fact that we're not talking about a normal cul-de-sac at the end of Creech Road.
Yeah, I am aware. I haven't seen any plans as to where that island goes, where the length of Creech it goes down and where it stops. So I don't know if it went past our driveway or not. That's certainly a concern. But like you said, it's kind of the nature of the beast that is. It's the requirements you guys placed on the development of that hotel. So we're tying in, and like Roger's report says, our impact is minimal. But if we get concerns,
I'll pose this to Brian. You and I spoke earlier today. As I read that report, Devin, you just alluded to it. As I read the report, it appears to me, the traffic study report, it reads like there's an island going down Creech Road, and it gives the length of that island. But from what Mr. Cook was able to tell me this afternoon, and Roger, you may want to elaborate on it from a traffic study standpoint. We don't see any island on Creech Road in any of the drawings, but the verbiage refers to it. Roger, can you try to clear that up? Or Devin, if you have any more information to shine on that?
I don't have anything as far as what you guys made the hotel do as far as island goes. Roger, can you remember anything?
In the appendices, in appendix number 1, which would be serial page number 16 out of 69, I copied the page from the other traffic study that shows the site plan access for the hotel. And it's kind of small, you'll have to zoom in, but it shows that island on Creech Road and the triangular island, both of which were required, I believe required actually by the DOT, because I believe that access going in the hotel was a remnant piece of right-of-way that was owned by the DOT, if I remember correctly. And so they could make that requirement, so they did, because the hotel driveway would just be way too close to the stop sign to allow a left turn out there. And so DOT made them put in the island and Long City Island and Triangle Island. Now, I wasn't involved in the detailed design. That was handled by the engineering firm that did the permitting for the hotel. So my presumption is that they were, they haven't done that yet, that they were going to be doing it. But that's on like I say, serial page number 16 out of 69 in the report in the appendices.
Brian, do you happen to have that? Or can you pull up that page number? I'm following along on the email on my phone and I can't find that particular page.
And so that would be a map from the initial hotel's traffic study.
Yeah, that was figure 2 from the hotel traffic study from 2018.
Because those people coming out of that 88 room motel have got to make, if I remember right, have got to make a right-hand turn and go down Creech Road and then come by on back.
They do, but the
Yeah.
verbiage we're talking about is it appears that there's a required island on Creech Road,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
225 feet. My question would be, where does that island start and where does that island stop? Is it beyond the entrance to Devon's project?
Oh, no, it's up at Blythewood Road from the stop line at the stop sign, extending down to the first driveway to the right, which is what, is that Hardee's, I believe?
Yeah.
And across the street from there is another driveway that goes to, I guess,
Gas
food store there.
Yep.
Yeah, that is correct. Okay. I was just, my question was going to be, I didn't know how close to this project's potential property line this would come.
Oh, it's quite a ways. That'd be 500 feet.
I do think, I do think this is even more of a reason. Oh yeah, you're nowhere near it. Everybody see the drawing Brian put up?
Yep.
Yep.
And they are now walking over to the boarded up doors of St. John's Church, the Church of the President.
All right, so by that drawing look, if I'm a traveler, I may grab a biscuit at Hardee's, which is that first driveway on your right, and then be able to leave and make a left-hand turn out of Hardee's.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you might go through Hardee's whether you're getting a biscuit or not.
Yeah, that too.
I mean, really.
Yeah, I think this would speak to the property owner's point as well as the developer's point. I think the property owners have made it pretty clear that they think the town has given them more than a green light for curb cuts on a road that they donated and paid for, even though they donated it to the town, which kind of causes me to pause and reflect on some decisions town council made to advance the McNulty project, which they don't have a contract on curb cuts, and they put it ahead of the DOT project of Creech Road, which now I would question, why do we do that when we put ourselves in a possibly something that would require litigation when we're putting one project over another when we have a contract with the property owner because of property they donated and developed. So I would totally be in favor of hitting that back to town council and letting them struggle with the decisions that they made on leapfrogging the McNulty project over the Creech Road project.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think it was necessarily a solid decision, and in the light of development and time passing and priorities changing, I think that's probably an easy decision for town council to make, and it's probably a fairly easy decision for the transportation department at Richland County, because they've been good partners all the way along the line. They've been encouraging us to state what our preferences are. And at this point in time, if we chose Creech over McNulty or the other way around, I don't think that makes a huge amount of difference, as long as we keep them informed of our preferences.
Brian, you can help me here because I would certainly recommend, based on the agreement that the town has made with the property owner, again, any curb cut on McNulty would certainly come before us if it was outside or new development or needed a site plan approval. But here we have a situation where we have an agreement that all but grants curb cuts. and to avoid litigation, I will, for one, would like town council to weigh in on an agreement that's going to allow this singular curb cut, if not more, that we really pay attention to Creech Road, the closer intersection to I-77 versus McNulty on the project scopes. I remember hearing the discussions on making McNulty a priority, but at the same time, we're talking about adding an apartment complex and potentially other developments on top of a hotel. Is it appropriate for us to ask that Creech Road be given high priority, if not higher priority than McNulty, if indeed what Commissioner Gorge is saying is correct, that it really doesn't make a lot of difference which one we put first?
I think it's something certainly that town council, if the mayor and council members want to put it on the agenda to discuss, certainly something we can see if they want to add and have that discussion, which I think that they would. If nothing else, it'd be a good opportunity for an update of what the latest is with the Penny project. I would encourage the planning commission maybe not to get so bogged down with any legal minutia that may or may not be in place. Strictly sticking to a site plan traffic study. I think that the traffic, the priority of the Creech or the McNulty project is something that council certainly, based on discussions I've already had, at least are willing to entertain. So,
but that direction would have to come from council, obviously, if they're directing DOT to favor one road over another, correct?
Right, it would. And, again, council, just kind of some sidebar discussions, they have expressed individual members an interest in discussing the priority list, as it were. And, certainly I can take that back to the council members and the mayor and say that we had this discussion. The planning commission had these potential, concerns and inquiries, and see if it's something that they want to circle up and talk about.
Yeah, thank you. So unless there's a commissioner that would not be in favor of it, I'd like to kick that singular part of this back to town council and say, look at your project and look at the priority of your project, Creech over McNulty, because I'm not going to say we're pigeonholed, but pretty close to it. And I would use the point as an example. So on a personal side, I don't see any reason that I can't vote to approve this project based on zoning and use. Yes, there's a traffic problem. Yes, it's going to exasperate it. But town council has to pay attention to that. That's the town council purview, not planning commission. So they've checked all the boxes on my list. Yes, it's going to make traffic worse, but we got to get council involved to help us give DOT some direction on what area gets relief first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that's a fair assessment.
And if there's no other discussion, let's talk about a motion and talk about how to move it forward.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposals for the park at Blythewood.
As presented,
As presented.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Okay, not that we haven't discussed it, but is there any discussion on that motion? That would be a motion to approve it as presented. And that motion has been seconded. Okay, hearing none, let's vote. All in favor of approving it, the site plan as presented, give a thumbs up.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes. Any nays?
Nay.
And 1 nay. Ed, your thumb was the wrong way. So really that would be this way. So we have 5 yeses and 1 no. Motion carries. Ed, I totally get your point. Totally get your point. Fine line on a yes or a no. So We appreciate the developer being online, the property owners, and Roger, thank you for the traffic study. Brian, you have anything to add before we move on to the discussion items?
Yep, just real quick for Devin, and just want to touch base with you at some point in the near future about the Board of Architecture review. I'm trying to continue to get ahead of that and potential questions that may come up. So maybe at your convenience, we could kind of chat about that. And I know you may have some questions, and I know it's been kind of a while since we talked. So again, just want to throw that out so we can keep that moving. They are planning a meeting in person June 15th. It'll be a meeting at the Manor there in Blythewood. So, but anyway, I just wanted to let you know that, and thank you for your time and energy on this.
Yeah, no, we're certainly ready to meet with the BAR as soon as y'all can. And just want to thank you all for your time. I understand your concerns, but I look forward to continuing our partnership with the city of Blythewood and, creating more homes for residents. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Devin.
We appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks, Devin.
Have a good evening.
Brian, one other follow-up question on that. Will the park at Blythewood, or at what stage will the park in Blythewood come back before the Planning Commission?
The question kind of broke it up a little bit. Did you say what stage that it'll come back before the Planning Commission?
Yes, sir.
It won't.
It won't, no.
That was my thought, which is why, can we caveat this just to make sure we're sending the right message to council that, yes, we approve this on a 5-1 vote, but we're asking them to review, certainly wasn't part of the motion, but they need to really review that list, DOT priority list, and we need to get Creech Road back in front of McNulty. And we'll keep hammering away at that.
That can be a separate item for the town council. Brian can put that in as a discussion item.
Brian, can we put that on the agenda for next month for us?
For the Planning Commission to discuss that?
No,
Yes, sir,
council.
just to give official request to town council.
Well, certainly do whatever you want. I'll go ahead and get the ball rolling with council and talk to the mayor and relay your message. I think it would be a message that they could have some and would have some thoughts on. So I'll do that and get it rolling. And then perhaps I can report back to you at your next Planning Commission meeting on what I discovered, and also have that as a discussion item so I can let you know what I found out.
Thank you. I tell you what, I also want to avoid. I don't want a homeowner to be able to flash a legal document and say, I have this agreement with the town. We're putting a curb cut. We're requesting a curb cut right below the senior living facility we just put in. It hamstrings us. So if they're not willing to take the, general nudge, then at least we'll have it in our recorded minutes that we pass that on to town council. I think it's a no-brainer, and I think they'll receive it. But just want to make sure we get that done so we don't feel like our hands are tied as a commission. Right, and as commission, just to follow up, as long as you stick to what the ordinance says, regardless of any other kind of ancillary documents that may be out there, you can not generally go wrong in the results. So, but definitely, I'll pass that along as well. Thank you. All right, any other comments about that before we move on to the discussion items? Okay, Brian, do you have anything, or is the comprehensive plan, Malcolm, do you want to report on that?
Well, the way we left it last week was to sign out the notion of having a subcommittee to work on the update of the comprehensive plan. We don't have any volunteers yet other than myself. So it would be a good thing if we could get a couple of commissioners to join me, and we want to extend it beyond that to anyone in the sort of public domain that would like to contribute. Where we've got to so far is I put together a broad brush matrix of the areas that we would need to include in the update as I perceive things. So we need further discussion to expand that and develop that. And we're kind of, I don't know whether you'll be able to see this, but we'll use this kind of format, which is the North Charleston format for comprehensive plans, that is really nicely laid out. It's very clearly presented, easy to read, easy to follow, with lots of pictures and not too much sort of legal jargon. And I'm estimating that we'll probably need between 12 and 15 months time to put all that together, not because of the workload on us, but just because of the time it will take to compile it, edit it, and make sure that we're in line with whatever information comes out of the 2020 census. So that's where we are, just looking for a couple of buddies to help me out. And,
did we do an RFP, or have we done an RFP for that, or are we anticipating using the COG?
We're almost 100% certain on using the COG. I've spoken with Brian about that. They've been our source and inspiration in previous years. They've got so much of our data on board, that goes through their automatic updating process. So because the amount of money is not huge, I think that they would be the better bet, just because they know how Blythewood fits within Richland County and the Midlands as a whole.
Kind of piggyback just briefly, Mr. Chairman. Once we get the comprehensive plan rewritten and kind of get it where we want it and comfortable, hopefully the next step will be a code rewrite, a total land development zoning rewrite, wherein we would take several years, and kind of that's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, as far as what we want to see and don't see. So this one did throw that in as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. So Malcolm, you're really asking for some help on your subcommittee to get it rolling, correct?
Yep. Yes, please. Yeah.
Do you want individuals just to reach out and contact you personally, or do you want to discuss potential?
Yeah, that would be absolutely fine. I'm sure everyone's got my regular email address, malcolmpg3@scu.rr.com. And I can send out a little note to everybody as well, so they've got something to reply back to. I don't see this as being extremely onerous, but I really would appreciate input from everybody else or the other committee members, so that we can then make a presentation to the Planning Commission as a whole, and get their input and support before we start to plan to share it with Town Council.
Okay, I appreciate that. And if you're interested in working with Malcolm on that subcommittee, please reach out and let him know. I know we have some commissioners that worked on the previous one, so y'all are the brain trust behind getting a good comprehensive plan done. I see you laughing down there, Ernestine. Any other discussion on that? Malcolm, I appreciate your willingness to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, well, if no one signs up, then you'll just get what you get. But I'm sure
that means you'll recruit Emily to help you.
But I'm sure we'll work it out.
Okay, open citizens comment. Brian, you have any on email?
I do not. Let me check YouTube real quick. And while I'm looking, I wanted to briefly just see where the Planning Commission was as far as the month of July. Town Council gave us the green light if the whatever board and commission or whatever meeting wants to take place at the Doco Manor. Social distance, of course, mask, alcohol, sanitizer, whatever's available, which we have.
Just alcohol will be fine.
Yeah, alcohol at the manor sounds pretty good.
So we'll get that plan done pretty quick that way. But so just gauging what your thoughts are for the month of July. Do you are you more comfortable with the Zoom meeting, or would you like to meet in person again, or do you want to just stand by and see what happens in the next couple weeks?
I've appreciated the Zoom meetings because they've allowed us to move some things forward, but I would like to get back to meeting in person, especially if the manor has capabilities of getting us social distance. Can you give me an update on the sound system in the manor? Is that underway?
Yeah, we sent it to council and they reviewed it and instructed us to get another bid, a more detailed bid, adding some video capabilities. So basically just bundle it all together where we can upgrade our audio and visual and get, where we can live stream as opposed to live streaming on my personal 15-year-old laptop like we're doing now. That's in the works. So we kind of got sidetracked a little bit with COVID-19, but it's still pending.
Another good reason to meet in person is so Mr. Pugh doesn't show us up with his backdrop. I would be in favor of moving back to the manor in July. How about others? What are your feels?
I'm concerned about sanitation. I'm in that high risk group and stuff. And, so I really favor the Zoom. I miss y'all. Yeah, I like the social interaction, but I would rather wait till August or September personally.
Brian, is it feasible for us to count Zoom participants if we meet in person? The other reason that concerns me from a commission standpoint is very much like tonight, we approved a site plan tonight, and had that been published that we were meeting at the manor, to Ed's point of the business owners he talked to, I do believe even under a social distance plan, we would have had residents of the community come to speak against that, although it still may have passed. I don't ever want to squelch opposition or support for something planning commission is going to have one pass at. So as long as we can count Zoom participants as our quorum, I would be in favor of moving back just so the residents of Blythewood know the commission is available and listening. Not that we're not on Zoom, but it is a different feel to be in a room in person with somebody.
I second that. I'd much rather we get together.
I like to wear my pajamas, but that's just me. So,
So Ernestine, I'm not going to say you're the only one in the high risk category because Malcolm's sitting there. I know he's in the high risk category, even though he's not going to say it.
We all are.
That's right.
But do find out, Brian, about whether Zoom participation will be accepted.
Right. I think it kind of is tied into the emergency order that council passed to have alternative methods. I just need to double check and see when that expires, whether they want to renew that. But certainly I know council, would want a comfort level for, our board and commission members as well as our employees on getting together. So yes, ma'am, I will check on that.
Okay, thank you.
And I certainly don't want to make it a one and done even. I'm also serving along with Malcolm on the Restore Blythewood COVID-19 task force trying to get us rolling again, but we don't know what's going to happen if there's going to be another significant flare up. Actually, Richland County has not even really successfully got through phase one. Our cases are still on the rise, not decline. So I don't want to disenfranchise anybody by any means. So if council says no, it's either meet or Zoom, we're going to keep meeting by Zoom, but I would prefer the latter.
Okay.
All right, sounds like a plan.
Anything else? Okay, if nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. And I do appreciate everybody joining us by Zoom. Erica, we see you've even moved rooms. That was a pretty smooth move on that Zoom meeting.
And we get to see your daughter.
I know. I was running out of my battery, so I had to hook back up.
I looked up and you were in a different room. I never saw you move. So, okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
I second it.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye or a thumbs up.
Aye.
Motion carries. Brian, Sarah Lynn, thank you very much. And Brian, will you just get back with us on what council's decision is on the Zoom/live meeting, and then we'll proceed from there.
Certainly. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Have a good one.